Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Table Talk. I have some really amazing guests for us today. We're going to be talking about marriage. Marriage. All right, so our first guest is my awesome husband, Matthew.
Aww.
Hi,
Emphasis on the
babe.
awesome. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for putting up with me.
Yeah.
Our other guest with us today is our awesome worship pastor and his amazing wife.
I'm Nathan, and this is Jessica, for those of you who don't know who we are already. And we're super happy to do it. We've been talking about this for like a few weeks now. And
Good.
Super excited.
Should be on your mind.
It is.
Yeah.
We talk about marriage a lot, obviously, because we're married.
Are you?
Yeah.
Spoiler.
But-
Spoiler.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys can go first. Tell us how long you've been married and the best piece of marriage advice you got before you got married.
Oh, see.
We've been married 12 years and we were just having this conversation.
Yeah.
We got a lot of bad marriage advice pre-marriage.
Honestly,
I don't
that's
really
so
remember
true.
much of the good.
Yeah, I don't really
stuff.
remember getting a lot of good advice. We were told all the time, like, marriage is really hard. And that's all we were told. And like
Gear
that,
up,
like, get
know.
ready. There's gonna be some, this is a
Oh.
hard adjustment. This is gonna be like the most difficult thing you've ever done. And that, I mean, sometimes marriage is the hardest thing we've ever done. But all in all, we were just talking about this the other day. Being married to Jessica is pretty easy. Like,
Woot woot.
it's not really hard. Marriage isn't that difficult with Jessica. So, and it's probably because of her, not me. But
No, it takes a
Easy
team.
too. You're pretty easy too.
All right, so no good advice.
Not really.
All right,
Once we did tell somebody one time, we were like, we're tired of hearing, but Jessica did. Jessica told her
wow.
brother, like, I'm tired of hearing so many things about how bad marriage
Yes.
Can
is.
someone tell me how good it is? Thank you, please.
Sure. Are you saying this is mostly church Christian believing couples as well that you're hearing this
Oh,
from?
yeah.
Yeah, one person told me, I forgot about this. Oh, so good. One person told me, whatever your favorite quality is about your husband now, it's going to be your least favorite thing about him in a few years.
A few?
Not true. This is still my favorite quality.
What was your favorite quality about me before we got married? Say it loudly and clearly and into the microphone.
I mean, my favorite things about you then are the same as now, which is like, you're really funny, you're really smart, you're a lot of fun to be around, like, you're easy. I say this a lot. Like I picked Nathan as someone I wanted to marry for a lot of reasons, but one of them was because being with Nathan was easy. And I knew that marriage was going to be hard, at least sometimes in some ways, you know?
Right.
And I was like, why would I do that with someone who already makes it really hard to be in a relationship with them?
For real.
So if I have somebody who it's really easy to be in a relationship with and we get along pretty well, pretty naturally, then like, hey, marriage might not be that bad.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience.
Good.
I want to hear you guys. How long have y'all been married now?
3 years.
3 years in September.
Did you guys get any good advice before you got married?
Lots of unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing.
That's the thing, man.
Just like
We
you
actually
really
heard.
did.
We always heard
When you're
buckle
wedding.
up. The first year is always the hardest
Yeah, which
And
we thought was pretty funny and very
because
not
the first year was not the hardest.
great for us. The first year was so
Every
great,
year
but
has gotten harder. I'm just kidding.
Pretty much.
That's not true at all.
So hard. I also heard a lot. Don't go to bed angry, which we could talk about later because I have feelings,
Yeah.
thoughts, feels,
love that you
opinions. We got that. The first year's gonna be the hardest, but I think the difference is the amount of work you put in pre-actual marriage. The better you are in your marriage.
Right.
Like for yourself, like
Yeah.
the work and the conversations and stuff you put in. And like we would ask people about these questions that we had asked. Like we talked about finances first. We talked about splitting holidays, like how we were going to interact with in-laws, like all this different stuff. And a lot of people were like, why'd you even talk about that before you got married? I was like, why wouldn't you talk about that
Yeah.
before you got married?
Yeah.
Also, that's
So-
what like expectations are. you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Yeah. No, Nathan and I had that conversation for sure. I mean, I kind of said, like, just because I'm a female doesn't mean I'm going to do all the cooking and cleaning around the house. Also, I like to mow the lawn. So
Thank
that's changed.
God.
No, that's kind of changed since we've been married. But
Oh, no.
I used to love mowing the lawn. And he really likes to cook. And so, we kind of said the same thing. Like, just because you're a male doesn't mean that you have to do X, Y, and Z. So we're going to, like, each season kind of reevaluate, like, okay, what works in this season? There have been seasons where Nathan has cooked more. There's been seasons where I have cooked more. And for the most part, when one of us cleans, both of us clean.
for the most part.
Right. I mean, I still clean more.
51% of the time is still the most
I feel like we see more.
What'd you say?
She said, I feel like I still clean more a little bit. And as you guys were having your little chit chat, I said that we see more. But I think it depends on your version of clean. Like
Yeah.
my version of clean is very different than his version of clean.
Yeah.
So like figuring
Same.
that out in the beginning of like, oh hey, like there's a couple hairs in the sink. Literally last night I was like, does this sink look dirty to you? Because I was honestly curious. Because to me I was like, this is dirty.
Which is such a belittling question. You're like, I know it's supposed to look dirty, but it doesn't. What do I say?
I just said no.
supposed to do?
I'm always completely honest. I'm just like, it doesn't look dirty.
And I was
Yeah.
like, okay. I was like, for myself, I would clean this. Like to me, I was like, this is a normal thing. Like
Yeah.
I will just clean the sink every time I like use the sink because
Yeah.
there's hair, there's
Toothpaste. Jessica got
Toothpaste.
annoyed with me like
The toothpaste and the mouthwash.
Getting slipped in
You
the
brush your
sink.
teeth, you spit it out, and then you run the water and you like splash it around to get the toothpaste and the mouthwash.
That sounds very normal.
Down the
Yeah.
sink.
My
I don't want
job
it
in the
dry
morning
there.
is to get ready as quickly as humanly possible and get
because
out
you
the
really
door.
like
So, yeah. So rinsing the sink is not a necessity on those
Yeah.
mornings.
That's fair. So you guys kind of brought up like your different roles
Yeah.
that you figured out. Why do you feel like that was such an important conversation for you to have going into marriage?
Well, we knew like the things that would be the most, like the biggest disagreements in marriage for us was going to be how we viewed money because we saw money very differently.
Yep.
And
And
cleanliness.
We knew
And,
that going in, and that
Fair.
has been accurate.
So
Conflict
we're
wasn't
like-
part of that?
No, Jessica and I grew up since we were 10 to get, well, I was 10.
That's true. You've had a lot of like
I was 11.
Jessica's an old lady. She was 11. And she was, so we grew up together, knew each other since we were little kids.
Mm-hmm.
And like we knew each other for 12 years before we got married. Almost 12 years. And we dated for 7.5 years before
that's
we
true.
got married.
It's a lot of life.
So like we knew how to disagree.
Like I knew what I was getting into.
We had some practice disagreeing.
fair.
Obviously, it's at a new level when you're married. You know, like
Sure.
you're
There's still fun things you get to learn.
yeah, you still learn about a lot about the other
Always.
person. You disagree in a whole different way when you're in such close proximity for so long. But we still had pretty good practice before that, so we weren't super worried about like how we treated each other in a
Well,
disagreement or in conflict.
And honestly, we had established how we would fight, like quote unquote fight, before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like is so
'Cause-
important.
I was the more unhealthy fighter of the two of us. And around age 20, did you say? Maybe a little
I
sooner.
don't know how old I am right now. So
Can't think back that far.
Around age 20, I was like, hey, I tend to be passive aggressive, which honestly I have always hated. So it's really ironic.
At least you know that about yourself.
I was like, I tend to be passive aggressive. I take jabs. My family were yellers, so I was like, I yell. And what was the other thing? Oh, the laundry list. That was always fun. And
like
I was like,
dirty
I don't
laundry?
like.
like
No,
it's
no.
like a whole list of things. She doesn't.
This was old school.
She had
I
this
don't do this
tendency.
anymore.
Yeah, she had this tendency to like
Good job,
she
babe.
wouldn't
Worked
bring
hard.
up anything until she brought up all of it, and
Right.
all of this was
dang.
just connected to
That's a
that
slippery slope.
to that one thing that triggered her. It's just that
Oh.
you were inconsiderate, that like you had a tone with that person, and I didn't appreciate it. And then like
15 days
and
ago.
then it's like
It was
the
like a
same way,
list.
and then it was
Yeah.
like the same way you did with my sister whenever we talked about that, and then the same way you did
Oh,
at worship
dang,
practice when you
girl.
talked about this,
And
the
in
same
my
way you did
head,
with blah,
it was
blah.
all one
And she's like,
problem.
it's just that you have a
Talk
tone.
about the emotional
was
space
all-
that's being taken up in your head.
Yeah.
Well, and also
I'm like-
he said to me once, this was kind of when it clicked, because this was before we had established this rule. He said, if you're upset with me about that many things right now, like, why are you even dating me? And I was kind of like, like I just felt
It's a
like
fair question.
I felt terrible. And that's when I realized there's got to be a better way to do this. And I also used to avoid confrontation a lot. And so that was part of the like, don't say anything, it's fine, deal with it. It build, and then it would be like
Oh, you hit your
volcano
limit.
style. And it would just all come rushing out. And so, I mean, thankfully I was like always super interested in relationships and healthy relationships and what that looks like and like healthy communication. That was kind of something I already had an interest in. So I was already kind of like asking questions, reading up on things, like learning that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I like literally went to Nathan with a list one time and was like, these are the things that I do that I think are unhealthy or that I just don't like.
Did it to herself. She laundry listed herself.
I did.
That's so funny.
And I was like, I need you to call me on it. And I was like, I'm not going to like it. So I need you to do it gently.
Growth is hard.
But I was like, please do it. And I remember the first time we were like in a fight and I took emotional jab and he just stopped and he went, how'd that jab feel? And I like gritted my teeth and was like, no. And I'm like, I asked for this. I asked for this. I was like, I mean, I'm like 20, you know, like I'm like young.
You're still
it's not
young.
like,
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. I was like, you're right. That was a jab. My bad. Oh, and I used to blame too. That's been my hardest one to give up. I will admit. I hate when people are passive aggressive. I love like direct communication. I love it when people just say, this is what I'm upset about and this is why. So because I like that one was easy to drop. So I would say the passive aggression dropped pretty quickly because
good.
I don't like it when people do that to me. It was just it's honestly a lot of how my family communicated inside of fights and things.
Yeah.
So it's just lovely learned behavior.
Yeah.
And the yelling, I also cannot stand to be yelled at. So it was like some of those were easy because I hated them being done to me. So it was easy to stop doing them. Once
Sure.
I had someone who was on board with me, who was like calling me out gently. The blaming one was running deeper than I realized. That one was hard. I would say that's the one that I still on occasion had to be like, nope, it does not matter whose fault this is. How do we like move forward and find the solution? And that was Nate P.
And I've learned to like be defensive about it. I probably always was. I was probably always a little defensive whenever I felt like someone was blaming me for something because that's normal. But now I'm like, sometimes I get overly sensitive about it. And we have to like talk through some scenarios. Like, are you saying that because you're saying it's my fault that this happened? And then we like have to talk through it. And
For sure.
it's a whole thing still. Like it's a learning curve even,
Yeah.
12 years in.
Yeah.
Like always figuring little
Now
things
we
like
just
that out.
recognize the signs though, because we've been doing it long enough.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the way he reacts to me, I'm like, like something I said just triggered something else, and this isn't about
For sure.
what I think it is.
Yeah.
Or he took something totally different than what I meant, because what I meant wouldn't have made him upset. So then I kind of have to backtrack. And sometimes I've literally been able to go back to the statement that I said, like, this was the statement that made him mad. He took it this way. I meant it this way. So that's when you kind of have to have that conversation about like intention versus reality. I intended
Right.
it to mean this to you, but in reality, it meant something very different to you. And then you kind of have to figure out, like, sometimes it's just as easy as saying, whoa, 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 like, that is not what I meant. And he's
Right.
like, oh, okay. And then we're fine. And then I can say what I mean, and then we move on. And other
Sure.
times it's not that simple.
Yeah.
It's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. I think that's the bigger thing is why people think that the first year is the hardest is because a lot of people are not taking the time to figure this stuff out because maybe
Right.
they're like, oh,
Yeah.
it'll change when we get married.
Yeah.
Oh, let's not cross this bridge right
Like
now.
you don't even know how to communicate yet. So
Right.
like,
So
yeah.
why are you even taking that step?
Yeah.
And like seeing because we had a lot of hard conversations when we were dating, and I feel like that's what like set us up for success.
Yeah.
But I just remember leaving one of his family Christmases, and I don't know if other couples do this, but like when you're dating, you're like meeting the family and like getting to know them really for like the first time. And we were driving back home, and I just like unloaded all this stuff where I was like, this was not healthy. This was not healthy. Like, my family's never done this. Like, can you explain this to me? Like, wasn't like attacking your family in any way, but it was
Nope.
just like, I
It was
don't want
probably
this.
well deserved.
I love his family. I really do. I think that was one of our best conversations because we got to know what
Yeah.
we didn't want our marriage to look like and what we didn't want our family to look like.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we got to take like the things that my parents do that we love and the things that her parents do that we love and like combine those.
Yeah.
And like just kind of we're gonna take the meat and we're gonna spit out all the bones and we like things that
Like we intentionally picked, like,
Yeah.
yeah, we really
Yeah.
like that my parents do this and your parents do this, and those are things that we want to do. We really
that's
don't care
great.
for this. We'd like to leave that one behind.
Yeah.
And we really don't care for this, and we'd like to leave that behind. You know,
And it
and we kind
takes-
of like handpicked kind of how we wanted our marriage to be and how we wanted, like our. Even our finances to be, or our vacations to
Absolutely.
be. Shoot, we both agreed that when we go to the movies, we're going to eat popcorn and get a soda. We never. Like, that was
is
like
that
the
not a
thing that
thing
was
for some
important to
people?
us.
Yeah,
No,
like,
my family never got any
try-
snacks at the movies,
they trying to save that money, bro.
which I get.
Oh my
But I'm like,
gosh,
that's
but
why you
that
get the
Movie
kid
tickets were
pack,
expensive
man.
enough.
I know.
You get the kid pack and the little baby popcorn, a little baby soda, and then
Also,
you're happy.
my thought about that
You're
is if you don't have money for the snacks, you don't have money for the movies.
Right.
Just stay at home.
Right.
And do
Watch it at
something you
home.
can afford.
Yeah.
Like,
Save up for that movie.
yeah, right.
And that popcorn. Because it's a chunk of change.
That's how Nathan feels about a lot of things, though. If we can't afford to get the most amazing massage ever, then let's not
Then
get a
let's
massage.
not get a massage.
Whereas I'm like, a bad massage is still a really
It's
good
still a
massage,
massage.
and it's
not
still
pizza.
relaxing.
It's not a bad massage is a bad massage. You might not have been there,
Oh, no.
but there's some bad massages out there to be had.
That's for another
Sorry.
episode sometime.
Yeah, we're gonna talk
Side
about. We're gonna ask for like your favorite
it on the
spas in the
Okay.
Appleton area.
All right, well, let us know in the comments, guys.
I'm looking for a great Swedish deep tissue full body massage, and just shoot some.
And he wants to not
Shoot your
talk.
suggestions in the
during it.
comments and let us know. Also, a regular pedicure place would be nice.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, I'm the one bringing this up and not Jessica. It's okay.
Pedicures for guys are
I love a
fine.
pedicure.
We do a
Take care of
good
your feet.
pedicure date night at least once a year.
They call
Sometimes
it
a couple
mani
more.
pedi, not a womany pedi, right? Isn't that what that means?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be for guys.
All right, we're gonna totally change what we're talking about. Explain to me what it looks like to have a godly marriage, in your opinion.
That one's all you, babe.
I think it means a lot of things, obviously. One of the things that Jesus, that Paul commanded was to love your wives the way Jesus loved the church. And which means unconditionally. It means gently. And it means, so gentle and firm are not mutually exclusive. Like you can be gentle and be firm. So like it takes both. It takes loving with intentionality. It takes sacrificially. There's so many things that are tied into that. But the main thing that I would say that like having a godly marriage is more about a pure love for the other person more than anything. We talk about this, I won't say often, but we've had this conversation kind of regularly. When we get to the point in our relationship where Jessica has to remind me that it's my job to put her first, we're in a really bad place. And the same with the other. When we get to the point where I have to remind Jessica that it's her job to put me first,
Yeah.
that already takes me out of my job to remind you that I'm the priority.
And it doesn't
I'm-
feel good to say to the
I'm
other person
making-
either.
No,
I-
because you don't want them to have to feel that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you're in this place at that point where you're placing yourself on a pedestal for the sake of drawing attention to a problem. And it's necessary sometimes. You have to have that conversation sometimes. You have to trust that when the other person is delivering that news to you that they mean it with like a really gentle heart. They're not
Right.
trying to I'm not
Because
trying
they
to boast.
love you.
Right. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to bolster myself right now.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remind you, like, your role and my role in this relationship is about each other. So,
It's like you always say, a lot of people use the analogy like, oh, marriage is 100%. You got to give 100%. But then it's like they always say it's 50-50. So you give 50% and the other person gives 50%. And I like it because Nathan always says, no, I think both people have to give 100%.
We say
Like
the
this
same
isn't
thing.
like a add
There's
the
no
total
line.
There's a
and
day-
it equals 100. It's like we both give 100.
there's going to be a day where I can't budge an inch closer to meet Jessica in the middle.
Right.
It's just because I'm not that strong of a person. And there's going to be something that, whether it's an insecurity I have or whether it's a fear that I'm holding on to, whether it's like just an emotional or physical energy issue, there's going to be a time where I can't budge and I'm stuck in a rut. And Jessica's going to have to come all the way to me to help get me out of it.
Right.
And the same on the other side. There's going to be a day where Jessica's stuck, and it's going to take me coming 100% to her to get her out of it. And you may be in that season even for a long time where you go 100%. And you go 100%. And we do a lot of convincing ourselves we're going 100% when we know we're not. We do a lot. There's a lot of like ways that we deal with that, not the best, but for the most part, like we have to be honest with ourselves and notice like I'm not giving it my all right now.
Yeah.
And because the way Jesus loved the church was when I didn't love him, he still paid a huge price for me.
Yeah.
Even whenever, and it doesn't say love your job like Jesus loved the church, not even love the church like Jesus loved the church, not love your bank accounts or like the way Jesus loved the church. It's talking about specifically your spouse. So all the things that we share together are not us. Those are things that we share together. I still have to make sure that like I'm not taking care of Jessica's house, but I'm also taking care of Jessica. And sometimes it means cleaning her house when she's not around, you know? And sometimes it means like doing the chores that she hasn't asked me to do or the things that I've avoided for a while or whatever.
Like it's give and take yet again. Like you were saying, like there's some times where the other person does have to go the full 100%, it's tricky when you, anyways, the husband has to go 100% when the wife isn't able to, and vice versa. Like, unfortunately, there's been seasons in our marriage where I worked 7 days a week and that wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't 100% for Nathan because I'm working 7 days a week and I'm exhausted. And, you know, you justify it in your head or whatever, you know. But, like, that was a season where he kind of had to meet me a little bit. And then there's been seasons, you know, like I said in reverse, where, you know, I've had to meet him. But just in everything, there's give and take, you know. Like, when we moved here was actually right at the end of a season where I had been working a lot. And, anyways, and Nathan did all the prep for moving here. Like, bought the house, honestly got my job for me, like emailed my boss as me, and she knows this now, I've told her.
It's not still a secret.
Like updated my resume for me, wrote the cover letter for me, like did all the things because I was just out of my mind exhausted, like working like 60 hours a week. And and so he picked up the slack. And there's been other seasons where like I've done a majority of those kind of things, you know? And so it's just, yet again, to me, it's like very much based on like what works for the two of you. I don't believe there's like some perfect, like do this and you'll have a happy marriage. I think it's like respect each other, love each other, and communicate what your needs are and your expectations are in that season, and then figure out what works for you in that season. And like I said, it changes season to season. Like there's some seasons, you know, where he does more some seasons, where I do more some seasons, where we both are kind of rocking it out and we're like, hey, you know. But like,
And then seasons where neither of
we
us are doing
suck a
anything.
little bit.
It happens.
But just the communication of like where you're at and what's convenient and what's working for you and what's not working for you.
Yeah.
Like where are you having to put in extra effort? Where are you? Yeah. Because like obviously it's not about like doing it when it's convenient, but like but if you know what's difficult for the other person, then you can make your adjustments. So like just staying on the same page and being willing to talk about it.
I agree.
For me, I totally agree. There's just a wide variety of right answers. And what comes to mind, me specifically, is like the idea that, you know, love is just more than a feeling.
Yeah.
Loving my wife is just more than the gooey, gushy feelings that I feel, but it's also a choice as well, especially those hard days.
And they're there.
Sometimes we'll say, I love you, but I don't like you right now.
Yeah.
So
That's how we
in
nicely
those-
tell the person to go away.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in those moments of like, man, I'm not really feeling that love, but it's a choice that I need to choose Taylor over what I'm feeling right now, because
Right.
that's my responsibility. And then I also just think about back to marriage counseling or our premarital counseling that we had, and there was a verse in the Bible when it was talking about husbands specifically, where it says like if you mistreat your wife, like God will not hear your prayers. I can't think of that verse, but I was like,
Dang.
God is serious about marriage.
Yeah.
Like he
no joke.
wants husbands to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regular certified marriage counseling is another thing that's awesome for anybody. It's not, there shouldn't be a stigma around counseling like there is.
Right.
That doesn't say anything about your marriage that you're going to counseling.
Absolutely.
It can say something about your marriage if you've ignored the fact that you need it. But once but going doesn't say like we have a bad marriage just because we're in counseling. It's been fun when we've done it. It's been like super helpful. We've really enjoyed it.
I cried during some of it.
Oh,
but I
you
mean,
cried during
it's me.
some of everything.
Right. It's
so,
me we're talking about.
Jess has feels, and that's okay. Crying is fine.
Crying's how I process most of my emotions. So, you know.
And that's allowed. That's allowed.
It's true.
If you are interested in anything marriage mentor related, I will put more information down below for you guys so you can check that out. But yeah, highly recommend. In reality, like a God-centered marriage is keeping God-centered in your marriage. As cheesy as that sounds. But like
Yeah.
whatever that looks like for you and your spouse, I feel like is what you have to do. Like Matt and I, which I love, we used to joke about it in the beginning of our relationship, but now it's more of like a normal thing. But we'll just check in with each other and be like, how are you doing with Jesus? Like, how are you feeling about this?
How's your heart?
Oh yeah, there it is.
How-
There
And
it
then we'll
is.
say it's beating. It's there.
And honestly, Matt's normally the one who brings it up.
Yeah.
He's normally the one who asks, initiates that conversation, which I super appreciate. But I feel like it's such a humbling thing for us to be able to really connect in that moment and talk about how we're feeling. Because there's been times where I've been like, it's not great. Like, I'm not feeling him. I'm not feeling the relationship. Like, I just need something. And he's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, let's think of some things. And he'll listen. He'll listen really well. And then he'll be like, let's think about some things that can help make this better. So I feel like whatever you're doing to like center God in your relationship and push your spouse forward in their relationship with God is what's going to set you forward.
Yeah.
Like it's really going to help.
Just that communication.
Yeah. Like keeping it open, not being
Yeah.
afraid to have those conversations, like to
Yeah.
talk about that stuff. Because
There's my marriage advice. Just communicate.
just
Everything else will
yeah.
everything else will fall into place at that point, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. And along the lines of like talking about mentors and stuff, we have quite a few mentors, but we have this one couple that we love. We had in our wedding. Now I'm going to get emotional. The husband actually just passed away recently. So Matt, when we met in college, Matt was a senior and I was a freshman. So he met Mark super early on. You guys just really hit it off, like just great, like best buds. And it was through Crew, the student ministry that we both went to. And I met his wife my freshman year, Emily, and we just clicked so well. And I don't know, but they were amazing and they took us under their wing and they really showed us what it was like to have a great marriage. Like have a great relationship, honor God, admit when you messed up, admit that it's okay to have a fight with your spouse. Just all this stuff that I feel like normally people like push aside and they're like, don't talk about that. Like, have these conversations with trusted people who are Christ followers, who are like looking out for our best interests. She was like, the biggest thing is to communicate. And I feel like that just really set us apart because we were really able to sit down with them and really talk to them about life and marriage. And we're going through a harder spot because Matthew just didn't love his job, was getting super depressed. And the husband, Mark, and Matthew are basically the same person. It's hilarious. They're great. Of course, Mark was older, but same person. So I called Mark one day and I was like, I need to get coffee with you. And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I need you to help me understand my husband because you're him. And I don't know how to love him in this season right now.
And I just didn't know what to say to her in those moments when she would ask questions.
Yeah.
She asked questions, but I just didn't know how to answer it because I was just miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, not to hate. I know we said we didn't get a lot of good premarital advice, but we've gotten a lot of good advice since
So
being
much good
married.
marriage.
That's awesome.
And one of the things, and I can't remember who even told me this, but on
just have to pick
occasion
up
you
his
should
legs.
just ask your spouse, like, hey, like, are you getting what you need from me? Like, is there anything I can do
Oh,
better?
that's a good question.
Yeah, I like that.
The other thing someone told us, which I thought was really, really brilliant, is that a lot of couples, like you were saying earlier, like try to put God first in the marriage, they go to church together, do all these things. But then she was like, a lot of couples don't pray together though. And sometimes that's me just praying for us, and sometimes that's Nathan praying for us, and sometimes that's both of us praying for us. And then she also said that it's really important to pray for your spouse out loud. Yet again, there's something about the power of saying it out loud. All the time, like even when you're angry, she's like, sometimes you might have to pray through gritted teeth, like Lord bless him, you know, like you might be so angry and you're praying good things for him with gritted teeth, but you're still praying and you're still trying to like, you know, pray good things for that
Right.
person, and I love that. And I will admit that is something we do not do a lot, even though all the time I think about it and I'm like, gosh, that's such good advice. We need to do that. Honestly, that's something just in general that I learned about Nathan in our marriage, was that like there's a lot of things that in my opinion I feel like he's not naturally going to think to do
Sure.
that I might need or that I
makes
might
sense.
want.
Yeah.
But if I ask, Like 9 times out of 10, he's gonna say yes.
What do you
like
always
I'm
say?
cleaning.
I can't read your mind.
Can't read your mind.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's huge. Like I've been saying that for
And then
years, as
what do
long
you
as I
say?
can remember.
Come here, Milo.
What'd
do
you
have
say?
to say about
do I
marriage,
say?
Milo?
Well, why can't you?
Oh yeah. For those of you not watching with us, Matthew and I have a Silver Lab 6-month-old puppy, and he's currently attacking Nathan's face with kisses. So feel free to watch that video if you want a really cute.
Yeah, that's gonna be a reel.
Okay, that's
Clip it. Clip it, Joe.
Milo, don't eat
not
that.
not the microphone.
Now he's trying to eat the
That's very
microphone.
important.
I'm sorry, you guys are saying such good things.
I know we can say it with Milo in our lap though.
But this is real life too. Just substitute a kid maybe instead of a dog, and you're like, nah, and you're trying to have a real conversation with your spouse,
Yeah.
and there's a distraction. So it just makes it all the more real.
We don't initiate prayer together enough, but every time it comes up, like we don't avoid it or anything. We do pray together pretty regularly. It's just not often, and it's not uncommon though.
And shocker,
And,
I cry when I pray.
Oh, who knew? So this isn't like we're not like just for anybody that's not on the inside of that conversation. Is that like we're not making fun of Jessica for crying?
I wouldn't care if you
No.
were.
It's just that she does cry a
She's
lot,
got big
I'm
feelings.
a
and we
crier.
all acknowledge it.
Yeah,
we
I
tell
all
that.
acknowledge it
That's what we
often.
love about you.
Pretty immediately.
She did. That was one of our first conversations.
It's one of the first things I said in small group too.
When you said like communicate, just communicate. Everything else
Seriously.
will fall into place over time. Like I don't think people realize to the depths of what that means. Like communicate when you're good, communicate when you're not good,
Yeah.
communicate when you don't know what to communicate. Like
Yeah.
at least let them know you don't even know what to say right now.
Right.
Like something. And then as a
And then
communicator,
communicate some more.
right,
Actually, yeah.
communicating isn't just what's being said, it's what's being heard. So there's like a responsibility
He's got it.
on both people. There's a responsibility on both people to speak well and to listen well. Because
Yes.
it's up to you. So like as a communicator, there's a responsibility for what's being said and a responsibility for what's being heard. Now, it's not up to me to make sure that you take everything I say properly and well. You have to
Right.
do that to decipher it. But I can put it in a way, I can package it in a way that like Jessica can understand it at least.
Right. And still be intentional
I
about
can't-
what you want
I
to
can't
communicate.
yell at her how much I love her
I mean, you
And
could.
and then be confused.
I love you, I love you, I love you.
And then be confused why she doesn't believe me.
Right.
You know, like
Oh, I get what you're saying.
like I'm a little responsible for how she took that.
Yeah.
Not as much as she is, but a little bit. And she's at the same time, she's a little responsible to make sure she filters what I'm saying through what she knows about me. Like I might be
Oh,
annoyed
sure.
right now, but you know that I love you. You know that I'm going to fix this problem with time. You know, and we have to give each other some of that benefit of the doubt along the way.
That was another epiphany I had at like age 20 was that I tend to give the benefit of a doubt to people I don't know really well and to strangers and to just people I'm not super close with, but then the people that I'm closest to, I realize like I don't give them the benefit of a doubt as much, and I need to.
There's so much good reason why we do that because we're like, I know this person so much that this is so against their nature that they would do this that it must mean more. That's what we think, right? Because we know somebody so well. But really, like they're just free to be at their worst around you because you're their husband, you're their wife.
Yeah.
Like, so you still need to filter what they're saying through what you know about them. So like as a communicator, you're responsible for what you're saying and a little bit responsible for what they're hearing. As the receiver, the recipient, you're responsible for how you respond, but you're also a little bit responsible for like curbing that attitude that it's given with. So like you're still both responsible for each other, even in each part of that conversation. It's just like I need to communicate as best as I can and try to package it in a good way. Sometimes I'm not in a good mental place to do that. And then if Jessica's the one communicating to me, I need to listen gently, just the same way that like I would be responsible for speaking gently. So like I want to give her the benefit of the doubt as she tells me this thing that I don't want to hear right now. Like she's not saying this to hurt me.
But there is also a time and a place to realize, like, this might not be the best time to have this conversation. We need to put the pause on and, like, revisit this conversation in 2 days from now.
Yeah, if you
or a week
watched
from now.
if you watched the Daily Dose about marriage that I did a few weeks ago, I don't know, a couple months ago now. It
one of
was
your rules.
Yeah, one of my rules is the rule about Netflix, which is like the movies are great. Everybody loves going to the movies, but Netflix is better. So like at the movies, if somebody says something and you missed a line, you missed like something important that someone said, you have now missed it for the rest of the movie.
Right.
There's nothing you can do. If there's like a moment that you loved and you want to go back and see it again, it only happened once and you're not going to see it again. You can't pause it. You can't rewind. But at Netflix, Netflix is better than the movies because Netflix, you can rewind when you miss something. You can pause it when you need to step away for a second. So
Or
like
for a couple of days.
Or yeah.
You know, like.
Disagreements can be a lot more like Netflix. They don't have to be a movie that you're stuck watching with
no say so.
Yeah, on
Right.
someone else's schedule.
Yeah.
Like the two of you can decide like, yeah, we should pause this for a second. Like we need
sure.
to walk away from this for a moment. Or you can go back and relive like the best thing for a second. You can remind each other of the highlight that just happened. You can you don't have to just blow through life at somebody else's pace.
Right.
So
Yeah, I would say that's something I learned probably the first 6 months of our marriage too, is like I'm very much, I said this earlier, I don't like conflict and I used to avoid it like crazy. I would say now I'm pretty good at like taking it as it comes. And so in the beginning, when I hadn't learned this lesson yet, I was like, okay, well, I just want to go ahead and get through the argument so we can find the solution so that we can be in harmony again. And so I would push, and Nathan would say, I'm not ready to talk about this right now. Or he'd be like, you don't want to hear what I have to say about this right now.
I mean, thank goodness for that, right?
Yeah, and I'd be like,
I wish.
but we need to talk about it. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's go ahead and get it. Like, go ahead and find the solution and figure it out. And he would be like, babe, I'm not ready. Like, I need some time. And I would push because I wanted to go ahead and get the fight over with, get the conflict over with. And he would always say, babe, if you keep pushing, he's like, you're not going to like what I have to say.
it's like, I don't have anything to say, but something I know I'm going to regret. And she's like, well, just say it. I'm like, I don't want to. And then I would.
I'm actually curious what you think. I would say that happened 2 or 3 times, and then I was like, got it.
Done.
Like,
yeah, that's all that happened.
It was really accurate, and I really didn't like what he had to say.
like-
and so then I learned to respect that boundary when he said, hey, I'm really not in the mental space to talk about this. Can we revisit it later? Or let me process for a few days.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that was probably a bigger chunk of it, is that he just needed more time to process it, and I'm just like, fix it.
And I've gotten to be quicker at processing. So
True.
like Jessica doesn't have to wait as long. Sometimes she may only have to wait a few minutes instead of a few days now. And Jessica's also really good about not pushing me once I've like hit that limit where I need like a minute to step back so that I can like gain my perspective again, you know.
And that came from just getting to know your spouse.
Right.
Yeah.
And just like being willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and communicating constantly when it's painful, when it seems meaningless, when it, you know.
I feel like we fight well. We just don't pause well.
We have a lot of discussions. We don't have big fights.
Yeah.
The last fight,
even discussions though have to be paused.
yeah. But I feel like the last fight we had, which was pretty bad, but we paused. Not because we wanted
remember what it
to,
was
but because we literally couldn't talk to each
I don't
other.
remember.
Remember? And then you went to take a nap, and I raked a bunch of leaves.
Oh. That's right.
Yes. Yes. Miscommunication.
I remember when we were like, when we were dating, we got really angry at each other, and it was something really stupid. And
It's always the dumb things.
I don't remember. I honestly don't even remember what it was. But I was like leaving her house mad, dropped her back off at her parents' house, was leaving, and I was mad. And I got like a quarter mile down the road, and I called her. And I was like, do you feel bad about that? She was like, yeah, do you feel bad about that? I was like, yeah, I'm coming back. She was like, okay. And we immediately were like totally okay. We were both just like, we just needed to like not look at each other for like literally 10 seconds, and we were all right. For
sure.
And sometimes that's all it takes.
A lot of people have different opinions about this.
They do.
So some people are like, you should never leave the house when you're in the middle of an argument. You should never leave each other. And I'm not going to lie. I kind of think you need to do what works for you. So some people are going to feel abandoned by that, and it's going to be really, really bad. And it's not something you should do in your marriage. And I think other people need that separation for a minute to like just kind of have a quick reset, realize that was really ridiculous, and I just did some really dumb crap. And okay, now I can face that and come back. But when I was looking straight at him, I was still feeling stubborn. I wasn't ready to admit that it was stupid and ridiculous. You know, so I think that's yet again one of those communication pieces where it's like, you need to communicate if you feel abandoned when they do that. Or you need to communicate if sometimes you just need a break and that is therapeutic for you.
That's part of like living your marriage for the sake of the other person.
Yeah. Right.
Like right now, I might be able to handle not getting what I need in this conversation for the next 30 seconds. But I'm going to like at least inch my way towards what you need as best I can at the moment while you're caught up in whatever you're caught up in, and vice versa. Sometimes we're both so angry we can't see the difference and we need to just chill and like get some perspective for a second. But I mean, for the most part, one of us can only budge a little bit before it's gone too far and start meeting the other person where they're at.
Well, and this is the thing. It does suck to do it, I will admit it. But if one of us will just be like, I'm really sorry. This is not what I intended. My bad. Then it's like the other person is kind of like you kind of, that wall comes down and you're like, I'm sorry too. Like it just takes one person to just stop for a minute, stop being stubborn, stop being like, I'm not going to admit that I'm wrong. He needs to admit that he's wrong. You know,
like
whatever that
we've
looks
got like an
like,
accidental safe word that we use now where like there's this comedian that
It's an accidental safe phrase.
Yeah. In the middle of him, he says, we're having a good time.
But he says it
constantly.
We're having a good time.
He's like, it's not. He's like, a lot of comedians come up here and they ask, "Are we having a good time?" He's like, "Nope, not me. I can't afford to risk it. I got to tell you,
you're having a good time."
Right. So like, and we think it's so funny. So now, like, me and Jessica will get really angry and we're fighting, and then we stop for a second, and Jessica was like, we're having a good time. And we like busted out laughing.
Diffuse the situation.
We laughed so hard the first time that happened.
We cried, and shockingly, I was the first one to do that. Usually he does the super clever, funny stuff first, and then I copy him.
Yeah, no.
That was me.
I felt it. Like as soon as she when the pause started, I felt it coming too, and I like knew, and we cried laughing. It was so funny.
And then once we were done,
like,
we were able to have the conversation because the tension had broken at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we were cracking up. Our guard was down. We were like, oh, okay. Like now our minds are in a better place. Even after just literally like 5 minutes of laughing, we're so much better. And then we finished the conversation and it was like way less tense.
And you find like, oh, we did kind of mean the same thing, huh? Like whatever it was at the end of the conversation, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. We do have like this accidental safe word now that helps us cut some of that tension, cut some of that wait time down quite a bit.
All right, give me your top 2 takeaways for a healthy marriage.
Communication.
Yeah, communicate and go 100% for the other person. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. It's not fair, but it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Because we don't do what's easiest; we do what's best.
Yeah.
This another rule that I shared on the daily dose was I call it the rule of position. And it's not a sex thing, which is always a joke that comes up. But the rule of position is about how you, like your attitude or your position when you're going through life. So like, there's 3 positions. We're either doing life face to face, where we are focused on intimacy with each other. We're doing life shoulder to shoulder, where we're looking towards our goals and we're ready to set down a path together, or we're doing life back to back where we're guarding each other's vulnerabilities and we're looking for threats. So when you're in sync, your purposes are met equally, so we're both looking at the same things at the same time. But the problem is when you get out of sync, when Jessica turns to me because she needs intimacy, right? And I'm in this attitude of being on guard and I have my back turned because I'm looking for threats. So she needs intimacy. She needs me to be gentle and she needs me to be sweet. And I'm over here acting aggressive and looking for a problem. And like, it just doesn't line up. We both have different needs in that moment. Or if I'm dreaming about our future and we need to be like shoulder to shoulder looking ahead at what our life is like, what is down the road for our life. And Jessica's the one on guard. And she's like looking for all the problems. She's looking for the things that are like she sees every issue with the dreams that I have. She sees every weakness. She sees every vulnerability with the dreams that I have, instead of us just dreaming together. And now I'm like completely discouraged because all it's just a bunch of problems. There's not really a dream here. It's just, it seems
They're
like
really
an
working as
inconvenience.
one.
Right. So, but when you
Yeah.
get on the same page and you dream together and you're shoulder to shoulder, working down that path of life, moving your life together in the right direction, or when you're back to back together because you know that you're both vulnerable right now, you know that you're in a state where you need to protect each other and be looking out for each other, then, and you're both a little weak, and you stand back to back, then
That's the least fun phase, I feel like.
your attention.
We've been at that phase
But
before.
there's success. But there's success when you're in sync. You know,
Right.
like, and when you need to be intimate together, like taking a breath and turning inward towards each other
Right.
together, and like both of you putting everything else outside of your field of view, and it's just you and the other person right now. What do you need from me, and how can I be that person for you right
Yeah.
now? Like, then there's something so powerful in that. But we get out of sync so easily sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Other people
So communication is key.
yeah, other people dictate your attitude, other people dictate your focus,
Yep.
your job, your kids, your friends, your family, and like, so it's really easy to get distracted. Plus we have our own like preferences and personal agendas and things that we'd like to accomplish in our day and our week and our month. So like we get out of sync so easily. So that's like the communicating well gets you in sync.
Right.
You know, like
Yep.
it makes both people aware of what we both need right now.
And also
Yeah.
seems like each position that you're in takes steps of growth,
Right.
whether individually, together as a couple, like just very forward focused of like, you're going to grow from this regardless of which position you're in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's true, but it's important to remember that because
Yeah.
when you're back to back defending each other from the entire world,
Right.
and you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you right now, to remember like this is growth for us. Like we needed this, and at the same time to clam up a little bit and turn inward when you need to, and like it's just me and you right now, and we'll cancel everything out that we got on our books.
Yep.
We'll push everybody else to the side right now. Like that's still growth. Growth
Totally
isn't
is.
just when you're looking down the highway together.
Realizing what phase you need to be in, getting on the same page together, and then
Being able
like
to fulfill that.
right,
Yeah.
fulfilling
There
that,
it is.
Yeah.
like getting actually doing the getting on the same page,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, I'll link that Daily Dose episode for you guys, or episodes, I should say,
Yeah.
for marriage, so they can.
If you don't watch Daily Dose, you should watch them anyways because they're
You
amazing.
should. Monday through Friday, YouTube, Facebook. It's good stuff.
They're super fun.
They are super
Anyway,
fun.
sorry. I want to hear you guys. What are your 2 takeaways?
Maddie.
Takeaways. Well, for those of you listening, just remember communication. Communicate.
Yeah.
Communicate. That's the number one thing. And I really think about the part of just like being in it with your person, entering the suck together, as we like to call it,
Yeah.
when things are hard, and choosing to do that. It's never easy, but you get the opportunity to choose. And I think that's what sets our marriages apart from other marriages, is that, you know, we have the opportunity to be there for our person,
Yeah.
and to know that this is going to strengthen me as a person, but also our marriage as well, when we get to be there for each other through it all and be everyone's biggest cheerleader.
That's a good reminder.
Love is a choice. It's not always
Yeah.
a feeling. It is a choice.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not easy making that choice, but when you do it, it will be worth it.
Yeah. I feel like
So-
that's what you brought up as like such a good thing to remember, of like you're marrying your best friend.
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
marrying the person who is your person. Like I tell Matt all the time that he sees all sides of me, including the very bad ones that the majority of people do not get to see. But
And I'm still here.
he's still, that's the whole point. It's like make sure your person is here. Also show your person those sides before you get married, because otherwise
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're going to freak
Seriously.
them out.
Let them know. Yeah.
Let them know
Yeah.
how you deal with stuff, because you want it out in the open and you want to have those conversations, and you're you. You just have to
Yeah.
navigate it together.
Yeah.
Have them before you get married, for sure.
Yes.
I was gonna say it sucked. We both saw each other through some pretty low depressions,
Oh, sure.
pretty low points, and it was awful. But I feel like it honestly super benefited us because we experienced
Yeah.
that even before getting married.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you guys
Yeah.
for being on the podcast. Of
course.
This has been super fun. It's been great. So make sure to follow along for our part 2, and we'll see you on the next Table Talk.